Should billionaires pick up the tab for the cost of living crisis? And if they should, how would that work? Well, in this video, I'm going to find out. If you haven't seen the channel before, we do videos aimed to help employees. And that's employees either in work or those seeking work. The purpose of the channel is to read between the lines and give you a layman's terms understanding of what's really going on, rather than the overly complicated, overly difficult to understand stuff that appears on the internet. And that's fine, but that's not what this channel's about. It's there to give you a simple, straightforward, everyday person's understanding of what's really going on. If you like the sound of this channel, do consider subscribing to our channel. And if you do, don't forget to click the bell icon so you won't miss any one of our videos. So this is a bit of a two-part question. So let's first of all explore the first question. Should billionaires pick up the tab for the cost of living crisis? Well, first of all, I think the best way to be able to answer this so we can break it down is to explore and give you some facts and figures. So billionaires in the UK, how many of them are there? Well, there are 67 million people living in the UK. Quite a lot of people. How many of them are billionaires? Well, there's only 177 of them at the last official count. So if you're counting 177 billionaires against 67 million people, how much wealth combined do those billionaires hold? Well, it's, at the last count, about £653 billion. So it's a lot of money, but the national debt goes on a lot higher than 653 billion. So in isolation, are they going to be able to pick up the tab even if they gave away 100% of their money? No, they're not. Are they even going to give away 100% of their money? No, they're not. So we have to look a little bit further than that because initial statistics don't really make too much sense on that one. So let's zoom out a little bit. What about millionaires? So how many millionaires are there in the UK of the UK's 67 million people? Well, there are a lot of them. A lot more than I was expecting. There are actually 2.5 million people who are classed as millionaires, and that's pound value millionaires, living in the UK. And that's at the last official count. Of those 2.5 million millionaires and upwards to the billionaires, what would we class as the top 1% though? The wealthy people who have the money, you would say, to be able to pick up the tab, so to speak. Well, the actual point that it goes into being the top 1% is when someone is worth £3.6 million and upwards. Now, I just want to clarify something. Picking up the tab for the cost of living crisis, that doesn't mean you have to go out and use all of the billionaires' money and all of the top 1%'s money to be able to pay off the national debt to bring things back under control. You don't need to go and do that. One, that's never going to happen. You're just cause havoc if you did that. But secondly, if you just simply want to be in the position where your household bills aren't skyrocketing in terms of energy costs, you're not having to go to the fuel pump and wince looking at the exorbitant prices you're having to pay. So there is an argument, and I've had them in previous comments as well and from various different sources, to suggest, well, why not just go and bring in a wealth tax, let's say for that top 1%, and therefore if we took that tax, would that be able to solve the cost of living crisis? And if that could be done, why hasn't it been done? And how would it work? We'll explore that part in a moment. Could it pick up the tab? Could it help things? There is an argument to suggest that. I don't want to go into complicated economics and all that kind of stuff, but there is an argument to suggest if you had more money coming in to the pot, that inflation and figures could be brought under control, which would stop prices skyrocketing. There is an argument to suggest that, but let's keep things as simple as possible for the purpose of the video. If that was going to work, why haven't the government done it? And if they can do it, then how would they go about it? So let's first of all explore, why haven't the government gone and done this? Why haven't the powers that be gone and brought in a wealth tax to try and bring things under control? Now, the cynic out there might look at why the government haven't brought a wealth tax in, because they would argue, well, hang on a minute, all of the top 1%, they're all the government's mates. They're not going to stitch up their mates, are they? And there is an argument to suggest that there may be some self-interest in there. But the other part of the argument that may back it up why they haven't wanted to do that is that a lot of the government are wealthy people themselves. I haven't got exact statistics on the current government standing in, simply because there's been a lot of parliamentary changes at the time of recording this video. For David Cameron's government, I do have statistics on that one. His actual cabinet, that means all of the people that David Cameron had in his party that were elected ministers within David Cameron's government at the time, 2/3 of them were millionaires. Are they really going to want to be giving their money away on a higher tax bracket? You could say, well, hang on a minute, that's what they were elected for. They have to do right by the country, not act in self-interest. But you try and have how many people in a government? I think it's like 350 seats or whatever. Well, if you sat there and you've got all the possible constituencies across the country, and there's a lot of them, or the majority of them are going to be wealthy people, with probably about half of them being millionaires, they're not going to want to act in the people's best interest all of the time. Let's be realistic about it. There might be your politicians out there that want to do it for the right reasons. But if you take any selection of society where you have, let's say, 350 people, guess what? Just human nature is many of them are going to want to act in self-interest. And you might think, well, that's not fair. That's why they went into government in the first place. That's their career. But if you flip it round, if we're given a balanced argument here, let's say you own your own home, you have your own car, you've got an iPhone, for example, you've got some nice stuff in your house, TV, sofas, whatever it is. Are you just going to want to give away all of a sudden and volunteer it for no apparent reason 20% of your assets, if you like, and give away your car to some randomer down the street that you don't know? So they're not going to bring it in, not just because they don't want to upset their mates, but because half of them, the majority of them, are all wealthy people. They're not going to want to hurt themselves, are they? So that's one problem, and pretty much I would substantiate as a realistic answer of why the government haven't wanted to bring this in. But could there be an overruling of that? Could there be a public vote, let's say? The public voted for Brexit. What happens, let's say, if the public were all of a sudden given a referendum and said, look, this is the situation we're in, we've got a cost of living crisis, the only way around it is if we gave the public the opportunity to vote for what they wanted, which was to bring in, let's say, a wealth tax. And let's say there was a wealth tax brought in, the public had the vote for it, they had the right for it, and it got pushed through. How would a wealth tax work? Dividends. So dividends, let's say you've got a company, whether it's an investment company or whether it's a company that does something itself, because that's what all wealthy people basically would do. They're either business owners, investors, or a combination of the two. So if you're having that, the way you'll get paid, you won't get paid on a wage slip, so to speak. You'll be paid on dividends. So what will happen is through a year, the directors of a company will draw out money for what they want. And as long as the amount of money that they have drawn out from the company doesn't eat into company profit, i.e. it doesn't wipe out all of the company profit, and then they end up owing the company money because it exceeds the profit, then they can take that as dividend. You could simply then take out a percentage of that and say, well, if you're going to take that amount of dividend out, the amount of dividend that you're taking out of the business, we're going to take 10% of that amount that you have to contribute in tax. So you take that money out, we're going to charge you it in tax. So we've established that, could a wealth tax be brought in? Yes, it could. Could that amount of money drawn by a wealth tax be able to balance the books to be able to pay for the cost of living crisis tab? Realistically, yes, it could. It would certainly be able to generate enough income to bring down inflation, which would bring down prices and reduce your household bills. That could be done. And the process of it, well, it's relatively simple. There are many types of taxes and processes that work like this anyway, so it's not revolutionary. But we have established that MPs probably don't have that much incentive to want to go and do it. But if they were forced to, it could be done. But what will be the repercussions? Let's say this did go through. Is this really going to work? Would it solve the problems, or would it cause another problem by trying to do so? Well, this is where I think the idea of a wealth tax is mostly flawed. Although I do like the idea of it, we have got an awful lot of comments from previous videos. Why don't we just tax the billionaires to go and pay for it all? They don't pay any tax anyway. A lot of them get away with this. They're all going on yachts, flouting their wealth. They can afford it, bring it in, bring things in line, and make it a little bit fairer for the everyday person, rather than giving all the money to the top 1% and everybody else suffering. So I get the idea of it, but there is a big repercussion that I don't think people have explored, and that's what I want to sort of conclude the video on. The big problem that you'll find with trying to do this is that you have to then take into account all of the people that are going to be the top 1%, but they're all either business owners, investors, or a combination of the two. If they're a business owner, they're going to have employees. If they're going to have employees, all of those employees are going to be paying national insurance, and they're going to have a company that's probably going to end up paying, if it's going to last, some kind of corporation tax, which is a tax that comes out of the profit of that business. So if you then go and tax the billionaires a load of money, or the top 1% of these people in the UK, a wealth tax, that money has to be taken away from somewhere else. Most businesses, whether you realise it or not, don't take tons and tons of money. 99% of all of the UK businesses are actually SMEs, if you look at the registered amount. About half of all employees in the UK work for SMEs. The other half work for what you would class as corporate or large companies, okay? So you'll have heard of the household names, and you might have know of smaller companies that are in the local area to you, or family members or friends that work for them, but that's the split. It's 50% of people work for SMEs, 50% work for large companies, but the crucial bit, 99% of companies registered in the UK are SMEs. So if you take that 99% of companies, most of them, they don't make tons and tons of money. So if you're in a position where you go and try and tax even the top 1% of this, they're still going to have to take that money from somewhere else. That money isn't just going to be from their own pocket. It will be out of investment from those businesses. You take investment out of their businesses, or you take investment out of their own investments. They're both going to channel down taxable revenue to other sources, either by way of creating jobs, or by lack of investment and other things that will in turn create jobs. So what will happen if you go to the top 1% and you say we're going to tax you more money, they won't be employing as many people because they won't have the money to invest in employing as many people. They won't be improving jobs or increasing wages for employees because that money will have to come from somewhere. And it's just literally, you're just shifting the money around by trying to put it back in a tax pot. All that will happen is the money that's in a lot of people's pockets in general will just be moved one way or another into the tax pot. And yes, it could contribute to paying off the national debt, but is it really going to see you, the average person, having a benefit out of it? Well, although the cost of living might have gone down, it's then going to mean that the amount of money you could probably make in terms of pay rises and extra benefits and things like that probably start getting a little bit limited. So one way or another, you'll still lose out. It's going to solve one problem and cause another. The other issue you have with this, if you go and tax billionaires in the top 1%, we've got to bear in mind is the UK, and this is one thing that we're looking at for our own business, bear in mind, and we're an SME, we're not an enormous business. Yes, we're doing okay and we'll continue growing as a company, but one thing we're looking at, for example, and we're not alone in this, is possibly looking at moving the business abroad or opening up branches abroad. And that's not necessarily because we don't like the UK. I'm British, I've been here all my life. I love the country, to be honest with you. Yes, it's got its flaws, but I think it's a brilliant country. But the amount of tax you get taken from your business, and if you're an employee and you think, oh, I'm getting taxed up the yin-yang here, try being a small business owner. You're getting taxed on what I make. I'm getting taxed every time I pay all my employees. When they pay their NI, we have to cover that as well, their national insurance, on top as a separate payment. Any profit we make, we get taxed on that. Loads of other countries around the world tax their businesses and their business owners and their investors a lot less than they do in the UK. And that's not every country. If you go to Scandinavian countries, they end up taxing people very high. They're known for it. But in general, the UK is quite a high taxation country. So if you are a business owner or you're an investor and they start putting up the tax more, especially for the very people that have the money, that create jobs, that create wealth for other people, create opportunity, and have put ourselves in a position where we have a pretty low unemployment rate in the country by comparison to a lot of countries, and there's a lot of investment in infrastructure and projects going on, and it's one of the world's wealthiest countries. If you start taxing those people, it's going to force many of them to go abroad. That process has already started. There are people now that are going, I'm going to go to Dubai, I'm going to go to Singapore, I'm going to go to somewhere else, America or whatever. There's a start of a lack of investment in the UK already. That is small. It's not endemic to the UK because there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business people coming through that do want to do business in the UK. But if you start forcing people, that top 1% to pay, yes, it might even out the books, but it's going to cause other problems in return. And most people, the everyday person, all that's going to happen is you're going to see one problem solved, another problem caused. So in reality, a wealth tax, even though it does seem like a good idea, it's got a lot of problems associated with it that might have a bit of a short-term fix to it, but it's going to have long-term issues for the UK if that was actually brought in. So sorry to say, bringing in a billionaire's tax isn't a good idea, and it can be done, but it's not a great idea if you look at the evidence on what I found and in my own opinion. So that just about concludes this video, but if you think my conclusion was incorrect or you think there's a better solution for it, trust me, I'd love to hear it, because there's probably not just one solution. I might have gone about an angle that you differ in opinion from. If you've got any suggestions on that or what ways you think this could be solved, great, put them in the comments below. Also, if you want to see any videos from us in the future on a particular subject, as this was a suggestion video, then do put them in the comments below and I'll try to do that. We've got a lot of different ideas for videos coming through, so if you haven't heard something or you've put comments in there before in our channel for stuff you want to see, trust me, we've probably got a lot of them in the works. And if you like this video, do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon so you'll see all of our videos coming forward, and we will see you for the next one.